All right. So we just opened the doors and yeah, people are flooding in. So over 400 registrants. I was just telling my friend Garrett here, he has a lot of pull and no pun intended from iPullRank. So you guys have a great audience. Garrett, I've been following you on social media and seeing your newsletter. I totally love it, or your newscast, or your videos. I really absolutely love it. And I was really, really looking forward to this chat because you and Mike are big thought leaders around all things SGE. And I love how you two have picked that lane. Okay, we're going to go down this rabbit hole of SGE and you just keep going at it, right? Like, because you see a lot of leaders, thought leaders, or people out there, they just kind of go bounce around into, they want to cover all topics. But I really admire how you guys have, going down this lane and doing a terrific job because you're really trailblazing for a lot of us, a lot of SEOs or people in the content marketing and digital marketing space to do all these experiments and learn about it so you can share the learnings with us. So for all people that are starting to arrive, well, Garrett Sussman from iPullRank, you are the head of growth and demand generation. Did I get that right? Or okay.
Yep. Yep. Manage the demand generation on the team. And I really thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah, no, we have had like great people in this webinar. We have had Rand Fishkin, the godfather of SEO. We had Lily Ray, the queen of EEAT. I don't know if she'll like that that denomination, but anyway, we had really really good people. We had Mike here before, and yeah, we don't want to change that ever. We want to keep bringing amazing people like you. So thanks for accepting the invitation. So well, let's get into it. Is for all the people in the audience, this is going to be a very chill, laid back conversation, fireside chat style. Garrett and I, love to talk shop, talk all things SEO, content, Google, etc., etc. So we're just going to have another chat like that, and we invite you all to participate. Just feel free to put your questions in the Q&A, in the chat, wherever you want them. I'll try to be checking on that and bring some of the questions to Garrett. But Garrett, we're going to talk about SGE, Search Generative Experience. So just to give everybody a little bit of context, what is SGE? And where are things at with that? What's been the evolution? And yeah, just give us the the download on that.
It's so interesting. So, as all of us are, content marketers, we're writers, we're designers, we're SEOs. AI has been, ever since ChatGPT came out over a year ago, has been kind of this major topic of what's going to happen to our jobs. And it's infiltrating everywhere. And so Google got into the game early last year with their version of AI, which was Bard. Now it's Gemini, which was their ability to generate AI and text and all that sort of stuff. Now, about halfway through the year, SGE was their integration, an experiment that they're doing of how AI generative text and search can work together. Now, it wasn't and hasn't been rolled out into the actual normal results, but they created the search labs that initially people in the US could test out and see a generated version that's pulled from relevant articles that are indexed on Google and creates, a sourced summary of whatever you're searching for. Now, beyond that, there's the ability to add follow-up questions where it takes that context of your initial search and follows you along in the journey. So it's not just like one search and then you're done. SEOs are freaking out because we're all thinking, okay, if Google has this giant kind of AI snapshot, this featured snippet on steroids that appears above the search results, how is that going to impact organic search traffic? And so the big question for everybody is, what do we need to know about the search generative experience? How's it going to affect us? And what can we potentially do to mitigate the risk to our traffic because we will be impacted?
Yeah. So and I think was do you think Search Generative Experience was Google's reaction to being an open AI partnership? Like, did they feel like they're being left behind?
Oh, totally. I mean, well, because, machine learning and AI have been around for, 15, 20 years plus. The idea of Google feeling their hand forced by the popularity of ChatGPT and then making a deal with Microsoft. And even at one point, Samsung was talking about replacing Google as their default browser for Microsoft. There was a red alert, Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, even said behind closed doors that they need to do something. And a lot of people said this was rushed to market, even though it's even still in experiment mode. I think that, Google is built on a lot of already AI algorithms like BERT and MUM are, algorithms that utilize AI already to, understand natural language processing and really understand our queries and change the way that we can interact with search. So that was definitely a forced hand. And yet we still haven't seen Bing with the incorporation of ChatGPT and OpenAI really get a ton of market share from Google. And to that point, Carlos, they might have held back and not felt forced actually rolling it out into the public SERPs. Originally, this experiment was aimed to end at the end of December 2023. That the only hint we got was like this little, kind of notation that experiment ends December 2023, came and went, and it hasn't been rolled out yet.
Yeah, and part of my theory on why Bing hasn't really taken off, even though they have their partnership with OpenAI, is that humans, we're animals of habit, and habits that have been built over so many years are very hard to break. And even this new shiny thing is still like, we'll have to go through a curve of adoption where, you have the innovators and the early adopters and all that stuff. I think it's still going to take time because we being wired, our brains have been wired over the last 20 years to go into this little search box and just type a few words and then get the results back. So I think it's going to take a while. But, apart from that, you've been playing with it, or well, playing, I don't know, does it justice, because I know you guys have been working very hard at it and doing a lot of research. What are your initial impressions? What have you learned over the last few months experimenting with it?
Yeah, so it's really interesting how the types of results that you get from SGE. And y'all, if you're in the US, and now I think they have actually expanded it to other countries, you can go and sign up to just Google Search Labs and join the experiment. But there are three different types of results that you'll see. There are informational results that are mostly text. There'll either be paragraphs of text, there'll be bulleted lists, or there'll be these kind of breakouts, which is like headline, a little bit of text, headline, a little bit of text. That's for most informational queries. Then you'll find e-commerce queries. So, and it'll actually provide recommended products that are pulled from the Google shopping graph. So, actually pulled from, your products showing up in that, which is now available organically through the merchant feed. You don't have to be paying advertisements. You can show up in that, but all the information and structured data around your products can be pulled from that into these e-commerce results. And then finally, local, which is a slightly different version than just the map pack that you'll currently see for any sort of local queries like restaurant near me, or any intention of that I'm trying to find something that's tied to my geography. You'll see a almost expanded map pack with multiple listings and then a bunch of different links to other images in a sort of carousel. Now, what's interesting is it's still an experiment, right? So there's a lot of volatility in the day to day. There's nothing very stable about these results. It's generative AI. It's pulling from information and creating a almost unique, never before seen version of the results. Beyond that, even the format of the snapshot changes. Like one day you'll see the carousel next to that's the citations that are citing and sending traffic to your website. Other days it'll disappear completely and you'll just see it as almost little footnotes. And we haven't seen really any ads inside the search generative experience. You'll see an ad set above it and an ad set below. But that one of the big questions is, maybe Google is holding off on this because it could have a significant impact on their ad revenue. If they haven't figured out how to monetize this, Google makes a ton of its money from ads. That's a huge risk to the bottom line, and they can't afford to lose that. So they have to get that right. So watching how all this plays out makes it really tricky for SEOs on how to anticipate how we can navigate it if and when it is rolled out.
Okay. And on that end, so yeah, I think it's still being it's experiment like you mentioned, and they're still trying to figure out what will be its stable state. But have you found any ways that you think you should start preparing for it or optimizing for it? Have you guys kind of come up with some conclusion or at least some theories on how SEOs and here I want to just do a little parenthesis. I want to ask, like, is SEO as a role going to exist anymore? But let's put that aside for a second. But again, SEOs, how should we all prepare for SEO? What things have you guys learned in terms of optimizing for it?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So there have been a few different studies that have been done. My boss Mike King did one 7 months ago that looked at tens of thousands of searches and saw that a lot of the results came from the top 10 results, but even as low as like 9. Then we saw a more recent study, less queries, so it's not really statistically significant from Authoritas, but they found that a variety of results were pulled from results outside of the top 100, like completely this opportunity to jump into queries that you might not have had a chance to due to a lack of authority. And then even actually today, Search Engine Rankings put out another study, looked at 100,000 and found similar sort of results. So a couple of questions you need to ask yourself when you're looking at how it might impact you is it doesn't always automatically generate. So there are options sometimes where you will see the generative text just come out when you click enter on your query. There's some where you actually have to click a button that will generate it. And to your point about habits, if people aren't used to clicking on a button, that's going to have less of an impact on your search results than an automatic generated result that's just in your face. And then sometimes it does not appear at all. And sometimes those are more like controversial political queries, things that, Google almost doesn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole anyway. But the way it works is it uses what's called retrieval augmented generation. And so it uses this large language model, the AI that we're all hearing about, but then it goes to the internet and it looks at the index and it finds relevant content and it pulls passages. Google has developed algorithms that allows it to understand specific sections of text, which Cindy Crum actually termed fraggles, a little fragment of text that Google can identify and then actually create a link where it takes the link to the article and then adds a appended sort of string of letters that can take you right to that specific passage in your article that's pulled to generate the text for the generative AI SGE experiment. Now, what you can do is you can reverse engineer this for your own queries. First off, look at the most important queries. Like we all know that there are certain keywords that generate the most revenue for your business. So those are the ones you're going to want to actually look at first. Put them into SGE, see the types of results that you're doing, and do this over a few days because, like I said, it's not static. You might see different results, different citations. Then you can look at what's being cited and look at the specific paragraph that's being pulled to generate the text. And what you're looking for here is actually the relevance. One thing that blows my mind, and Mike wrote this article about this on our site, is the idea that these algorithms actually take words, take linguistic phrases, and translate them into mathematical numbers. So the value of the word man and the value of the word woman and the value of the word king and the value of the word queen are actually, if you plotted them on like a two-dimensional graph, they actually have a relationship that mathematically makes sense. So from that, and a lot of like AI content tools will actually do this. It's called cosine similarity is the formula. And I'm not going to get too much into like the calculus of everything, but by looking at the mathematics of that, you can actually see how mathematically relevant your written words are to the search queries that you're going after. And there are tools that can help you look at this. One that I wrote about is Market Brew has a free tool called the SGE Visualizer. And it's so cool. What this does is you can put the link into one form and then put your targeted keyword in another, and it'll generate a percentage similarity score of how relevant your content is to the keyword. And that's how you can start to reverse engineer. Is it relevant enough to give it a good chance at appearing in the SGE results? And I played around with this a ton, and I was I would update my content to make sure the similarity score was better. And a day later, it would start to appear in the results. So
Mhm.
there are ways that we can actually optimize our content for SGE. We just need to keep in mind that it's that much harder because you're not going to get it 100% of the time. It fluctuates day to day.
Yeah, and I think as the models or as Google decides, okay, what's going to be the stable state of this, we'll see things that we can rely more on. And as you were talking about this, and of course, SEOs we're not going to become now PhD in math to try to understand this. I'm pretty sure there's like a lot of very smart people already working on this kind of optimization tools, right? Like I would be surprised if the people are, I don't know, SEMrush or Ahrefs and all the usual SEO tools are not already working in optimization tools for SGE. But there's always going to be fundamentals for optimization, right? Like today for the regular search, we just have to create great content and then have good technical SEO and have good load speed and all these good things. So are there any fundamentals that you can speak about when thinking about optimizing for SGE?
Yeah, first I would say thinking on the e-commerce side, as I mentioned, with the e-commerce results, they're really built on the Google Shopping Graph. Now, they are still pulled from example articles, and we all for e-commerce, the affiliate listicles, and we all kind of hate them because it feels like pay to play, where you want to like reach out to someone to make sure that your product is ranked in the top 10. And
Yeah.
of their article, and it still does pull that information in those results. But the fundamental first thing I would do with e-commerce is make sure that your product is in the merchant center. um and you don't have to pay for it. It's not an advertisement Google Ads sort of situation. You can just make sure you're in there. Make sure that you structure data to provide as much information about your product as possible. Like, it's nuts because you can click on a product that does get pulled in there, and you can see Reddit threads that are written about, the reviews that are written about it, all the product details, the pricing, the shipping. All that information is ultimately going to impact whether or not you show up in those results. So it is a holistic strategy, starting with structured data. I mean, to your point, Carlos, it still is going to be the fundamentals, right? Like, good, relevant content that speaks to whatever the query, the search intent is asking, and it answers it, is what you're going to try to achieve. So far, though, one thing that's different from SGE, from the regular search results, is it doesn't seem to have the same algorithms in terms of authority and backlinks and topics. Like, the best brands don't definitively always show up in the results. Who knows if that'll change? But right now, if you don't have like a Fortune 500 brand, you still have a shot of kind of leapfrogging all the market leaders and showing up in there if you're more relevant and really addressing the search intent.
I like that because that kind of levels the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, and I hope it stays that way. I think, Google has claimed that they want to surface more hidden gems across the board, like in the algorithm. But, there have been a few articles that have come up in the SEO space recently. House Fresh, Giselle Navarro's talking about how, big brands dominate the SERPs and the independent sites have no chance at all. And Google liaison Danny Sullivan said, that's something we want to avoid. We don't want big brands to always be the top results. Now, I have my own feelings on why that's the case and why it does make sense a lot of times, but I hope it stays this way for the opportunity of smaller brands to appear in search results, because in the SGE, because it will impact traffic, I think, if this, gets rolled out in the current state it is.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about that article. How's fresh, and it's amazing how much debate that has spurred. And I'm always skeptical when I see correlations. Like I'm an engineer by trade, so I know some statistics, and when I see correlations, and especially when they're below zero point 0.5, so it's very hard. But anyway, I think there is an interesting point around that. But yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet. I want to take a question from the audience, because just to give them some love. So Adi is asking, how can you use SGE for B2B companies like in cybersecurity? I know it's a big question, so I don't know if you have a good answer for that.
Yeah, no, I think the opportunity is to, I would say most companies are not thinking about how SGE is going to impact the search results. So what you can do is almost use it for research. What are your top queries and what is showing up in there? I would start tackling the most important keywords, like get into Search Labs, Addy, like get yourself the free account and start testing and experimenting and learning to see what pops up. So if you're in cybersecurity, it's the same as any sort of informational or B2B or even B2C types of business. It's knowing what the most important keywords are to your buyer's journey, seeing what the results are, and then design your content to answer those questions as best you can. One thing that does seem like it is going to surface, although it's not super reliable, is this concept of information gain, which is we've all seen copycat content, right? Like we've all looked at a keyword and you see the 10 same titles and the 10 same results, and it's all the same stuff. And it's really annoying and it's frustrating as both an SEO content creator and a user. In theory, Google is going to try to use this concept of information gain, which is new information, and surface it. And that hopefully is going to show up both in the search results and in SGE. So if you have in your cybersecurity firm, a bunch of in-house experts who feet on the ground are answering questions to your potential clients that nobody else is out there answering, leverage that now. Get that information from them, interview them, insert it into the relevant keywords that aren't being answered. And this goes back to just fundamental like content SEO. But the more that you can surface that expert insight in your content, not only is it going to show up for just organic search, I think you'll have a better chance of showing up in SGE.
Right now, I hope Adi that answers the question. Now, on that note, I want to go back to a question that I have put in the parking lot for a bit. So, is the role of SEO going to change dramatically? Meaning, instead of going from being a search engine optimizer, you're going to become an AI optimizer or LLM optimizer. What are your thoughts on that? Are we going to move from the role of SEO to a little bit of a different role?
I personally think it's going to be the same. I just think A, it's going to get harder, and B, it's going to be more integrated with the other marketing and content creation roles across your brand. For instance, assuming this is rolled out and people start using, whether it's Google, SGE, or any of these AI type of conversational searches, the way that we interact is going to change our behavior. We're so used to, we've been trained by Google all these years to do one or two word, head term keywords, right? Email marketing, how I train dog good, like, I mean, obviously it's much better now. And, the algorithms allow us to ask more complicated contextual questions, but that's going to get even more complex as conversational AI allows you to talk in your natural language and get actual generated answers based on content. So now as SEOs, one aspect of it is making sure that we're content strategists and that we are creating content that's personalized for our target audiences across the entire journey. As I was mentioning at the beginning, this idea of context. What's the first question? What's the next question? What's the next question someone might ask, from a conversational AI? It's not just that one keyword, it's all the way down the entire journey that you have answers and you're able to, solve it. And that's why the depth and breadth matters. It's not just as much about specific keywords, which goes to the second reason that I think SEO will change and that it'll be harder is I anticipate it's going to even be more challenging for us to report on performance, which SEOs we hate. I don't think that Google is going to make it easy for us to know, oh, this person asked, why does my cat like to go outdoors in the winter and bring home mice? Like just look up that one keyword, that one search term that happened one time ever and resulted in a $10 sale for some cat product that you sell. Like that's not really useful as an SEO. And so we really need to start rethinking the way that we're going to report on SEO and not have that sort of granular, it is going to be more granular. It's going to be harder to say, oh, at scale, this is what works. This one article, covers this one keyword. It's not going to work like that.
Hmm. Very interesting. So, I think going back to things very basic, and I'm almost embarrassed to ask this, but probably is good to touch on it because there's a little bit of gray area. What's the difference between Gemini and SGE?
Yeah, so it's interesting how Google has these products separate. Right now, SGE is a version of generative AI that's integrated into search. Gemini is a standalone product. I guess the apples to apples would be how OpenAI has kind of chat GPT, whereas Bing actually has a co-pilot. I mean, I guess it's not apples to apples because Microsoft is actually doing Copilot across all of their devices and technology, integrating AI. But it's basically the difference between a standalone conversational product versus something that's integrated with search. Now, what's interesting is with ChatGPT, for instance, it's connected to the internet, which goes back to what I was saying, which is this RAG model, this retrieval augmented generation. It's not closed. Like ChatGPT 3.5, like the non-paid version, can't access the internet. So there's more issues with asking questions that are up to date that happened yesterday. Like ChatGPT 3.5 doesn't know that. These ones that are integrated like Gemini with actual Google will be able to take specific index content that's relevant, that's new, that's fresh, and spit out a specific answer that's tied to it as opposed to just looking at all of its training data. I don't know if that specifically answered your question, but we're going to have slightly different approaches to these environments and the way that people interact with them in terms of our content creation and SEO.
Yeah, I find Gemini more akin to ChatGPT, right?
Mm-hmm.
And SG a little bit more like to Bing Chat, right? So that would be. I just wonder if at some point those things are just one and the same, right? Like you just ask, it's just an AI assistant, and you ask it questions or give a task. But no, I don't know. That might be just me. Have you probably in all of the experience that you've been running? Have you probably typed the same query in the Google box and same query in SGE? What are your insights or what have your findings on that? Are you getting similar results or what are the difference between the results that you get for the exact same query in one or the other?
Google, like just organic search
Yeah,
versus
just
like SG?
good old organic search compared to.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, it is like as we're seeing, and I've experienced this firsthand, but seeing from the different studies, it's not definitively the top 10, which makes me think that the algorithms aren't pulling the exact same ranking factors. For organic search, for instance, we're mentioning the idea of authoritative links or semantic SEO, your relationship and your authority across the internet isn't taken into consideration at this point to the extent in SGE to the extent it is in organic search. So it is very different at this point. One other consideration, which I've noticed, and it's relevant, we were talking about this right before the webinar started, is Google's desire to pull in user generated content and hidden gems in the form of forums and discussions like Reddit and Quora becoming more and more pervasive. And in the chatter of the SEO community, a lot of people really dislike that, because while it does feel like it is a more social, like real life perspective from normal people, it's also easy to manipulate as SEOs, and kind of like you can go into a thread and add your little spam affiliate comment and people find that.
What?
The other,
SEOs manipulating search results? Never.
dude, please, SEOs, I beg on you, please don't ruin Reddit. I enjoy Reddit. No, I mean, it's already, there was a study, research study published recently by Glenn Alsop, detailed, looking at top 10,000 product review queries, and how he found, already in the last few months, Reddit showed up for about 75% of them, near the top. And not only that, the vast majority of those product review queries had spam results in them. Basically, someone from a brand putting a link to their own website that would drive there. So it's already getting ruined. But my funniest experience with SGE is I just typed in best movies of all time, and one of the results was Godfather is the best movie of all time, according to a Reddit user. And I clicked on the link, and it was just this random anonymous dude with one upvote in Reddit. And that was the SGE result. And that's problematic. Like, I don't want,
Yeah.
if I'm looking for a high level, high important term, like best movie in the world, I don't want some anonymous person from Reddit to be the answer. So I feel like that's where the volatility, I anticipate the state it's in now is going to change over time. Like maybe they'll integrate more of these factors. But at this time, it feels very Wild West.
Yeah, so still very unstable, very different results, very random results every now and then. That's what I hear. So yeah, we will have to probably wait and see how things stabilize. And now this deal with Reddit, I don't know. I would love to dedicate just a couple of minutes to get your 2 cents on that. Now that we're talking about Reddit, like what do you make of that?
I think I'm concerned in general. Um, I've been noticing over, so Reddit as a, here's my interesting timeline that I've been researching a little bit. June of 2023, this is last summer, basically Reddit says we're gonna jack our prices on our API. The whole community freaks out. Google apparently freaks out as well, that it was a really bad search experience because all of these subreddit communities go dark, they go private, they turn off, and Reddit was showing up a lot in search results. So people would click on an index Reddit thread and it would take them to a community they couldn't access. Bad user experience. Things turn back on. All of a sudden, Reddit's traffic starts skyrocketing. They were already getting a lot of traffic. They were getting like 70 million visits per month, goes all the way up to like 700 million. This is like an 800% increase over the past 6, 7 months, which is ridiculous. Then literally last week, we find out two things. One, Reddit's going for its IPO, which we kind of knew was going to happen. And Google has a $60 million partnership with Reddit to use its content and data to train its AI models. And the implications of that are concerning, to say the least. For those of you who haven't seen it, Carlos interviewed Brittany Muller on this webinar series last year. So good. And she talked a lot about biases and the risks of biases in AI. You think about like Wikipedia is like 80% white dudes. Well, like Reddit is even worse. It's like 80% kids who are white, who are young, who are affluent. And if all this content is coming from this very specific demographic, and that's going to be influencing generative AI text in some capacity, and we still don't know exactly what the details entail, that's problematic with AI in general to get, this very specific bias type of results. I don't think they'll be super, super awful, but we've already seen last week an example of how it could be really, really problematic. So Gemini, was there was a huge firestorm because people were asking for it to generate pictures of historical figures, and for some reason the parameters were set up to not show white people in the historical figures. So they would ask for, like, the founders of America, and it was, an Asian American, an African American, a Native American, which personally, being, my proclivities, I'm like all for it. I'm like, I think, because of the problems with, an oversaturation with white perspectives in history, I think it's good to have diversity. But people had a problem with historical inaccuracies, to the extent that Google actually shut down Gemini as an AI image generator. And the CEO, Sundar Pichai, actually gave a memo statement about, like, we got this wrong. And so it's just interesting to think about how the way that the different AI creators, the bias of information and training data can impact the output. That's something you got to keep top of mind with working with any of these tools, whether you're using it to generate content or using it to find content.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very interesting. Thank you for going down that rabbit hole with me around Reddit, because there is a lot of chatter around that. Now, let's take it again back to fundamentals on SGE. Part of the chatter I've heard from a lot of SEOs is that SGE or any AI powered search is likely to take very informational, top of the funnel kind of queries, and then maybe people should focus on more like down the funnel or more editorial type of content or queries. So I don't know. I would love to get your point of view on that. Is like writing like how to change a light bulb or how to boil chicken, how to boil, is that, things are going to be full taken by AI, and then should we focus on the other type queries, or what are your general thoughts on that?
I think it's a great question. I think this is another place where your own audience and market research is going to become really important. To your point, something that is very superficial, like information, like facts that anyone could get from like a dictionary, for instance, we don't need your brand to necessarily be the provider of that fact. Like, there's talk about like this certain like entitlement in SEO of like, if we generate the best version of content, that people should come to us, which is absolutely true. But there's a difference between just facts and insights. And so to that, and opinions to that matter. So I would say I could see a world where, and we've been talking about this, Mike and I, in terms of like, we have this SGE threat report of why you would see your search traffic diminish, is that these very top of the funnel keywords probably won't be generating as much organic search traffic in the future, assuming that it's just a fact that anyone, like, people can't necessarily provide better results. It's just a fact. And so I think the nature of SEO, to your point, and how it'll change and what makes it harder is we will probably see less organic search traffic across the board. However, focusing on the bottom of the funnel, focusing on thought leadership, focusing on content that could ultimately be surfaced at a more granular level is going to be a differentiator. That information gain, insights that are specific to your experts that aren't just a fact, but more from, you know, cybersecurity. If you have a specific loophole for a specific situation or a specific way to that, a framework for safety, that's going to be more proprietary. That's something that people are going to want to know your expertise on it. And you're basically hooking them in by providing information that isn't easily repeatable. And so that should be a lot of focus, especially if you're niche. Like, especially if you are a smaller company and don't have the resources to compete with a bigger brand or compete at scale by creating like thousands and thousands of articles that are actually personal and not just AI generated sludge.
Yeah, so I wonder, like that just begged the question, like if you're in a commodity business, how can you really leverage SEO, right? Because if it is, again, I cannot think of anything right now that would be a commodity business, but commodity business by definition, there's no really differentiation, and then you just maybe differentiate on price. Kind of wonder how can you really differentiate online when you're in a commodity business?
Yeah, I think short term. I don't think we're there yet. So I think there's opportunities to still generate that traffic until we've seen entire paradigm shifts. But I think that, one thing, and it's gonna be interesting to see how Google plays out, but Google is trying to surface these hidden gems. They're trying to surface perspectives. There's ways to show up in the SERPs to show your opinion or your brand that I think people will still want to find. Like one of the consequences of so much utilitarian, like, you know, AI content is we're going to want to find people, we're going to want to find authenticity and humanity. So finding ways to have opinions, show your brand, be authentic, and kind of embed that in the genetics of your content is going to be a differentiator. Now, to my point earlier, you might not see the same scale and volume of search, traffic that you did in the past, and that's just going to be a new reality. But that doesn't mean, I mean, if you're doing that right now, how many conversions do you think you're getting from providing a dictionary response to, the definition of what is great, content anyway? I don't think that's really going to be what people are looking for.
Yeah, well, to be fair to SEOs, I think part of that, those generic kind of dictionary are to support your overall SEO motion, right? So you want to show Google that you're authoritative, and then you go to the cluster and you answer all the questions, and all these fundamentals, which we think are good practices, but at the end of the day, you're creating, like that dictionary answer is not going to get you the conversion, right? No, nobody's going to come. So I'll give you a very specific example. We see ourselves like an authority in content writing. We've been ranking for content writing for #1 for 8 years, but we attribute that not because we're specifically saying we're the best at content writing. Our top traffic article is about conjunctions, right? That is not going to convert. We know it doesn't convert. Barely, if it converts, maybe converts at 0.0001% of traffic. But it's signal onto Google that we're an authority in the topic, which is going to help rank other pages as well. So that's going to be, part of the like, okay, now what? Now what?
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all. Here's my question back to you is, do you think that's how it should be?
Uh, it's hard, right? Because sometimes it should, like, you actually want to give somebody all the questions that they might have around a topic, and then sometimes it's just something for show for Google, right? Like, it shouldn't be that way. Should rank for the merits of what people are looking for. So yeah, I don't know what to do going forward, right?
Well, that's the thing, and that's what's so hard to predict, right? Because I don't think we know. Like, if you imagine a world where Google can just create that content, like you think about the top 10 affiliate list posts that we were talking about earlier. Like, if we see a significant decline in search traffic to those affiliate list posts, and affiliate marketers, niche marketers have been frustrated, they're seeing their traffic tank from the helpful content update, over the last few months anyway. What's the point of creating that traffic or creating that content if it doesn't generate money? And eventually, when we get to this world where if you're just creating content, like it's going to become like if a tree falls in the forest, does anyone hear it? Like, if eventually we get to a place where people don't care who made the super top of the funnel content at all, and you're not rewarded from Google for creating that content, will that change your content strategy? Because I could eventually see things going that right way because it just doesn't make sense for us to create content that doesn't benefit us and only is like ancillary complementary content.
Yeah. No, yes. Good way to reflect on it. And on the traffic side, I don't know if you saw that Gartner came out with a prediction that 25% of all search volume will disappear by, I think, 2026. So are you in agreement then with that prediction, or what do you think?
I think it's aggressive. I don't think it'll be that substantial, but I think there will always be a place for search. But yeah, I do think the volume will be reduced in some capacity. I think people will get used to, there'll be situations where voice search or voice conversations make more sense for queries. There's times, you see people saying like, is TikTok, we just wrote an article about like TikTok as a search engine. I don't think that's going to take away, like supplant Google, but there are some queries, some informational searches that are more appropriate for that medium of TikTok than search. YouTube is a different search engine. I could see a fracturing of different types of search engines, included with that being like these LLM chatbots. Ultimately, I think it'll, impact Google. They have such a moat. I mean, they still have like 90% of all informational traffic. So I don't think it'll be that quick, but I think eventually things will change.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it'll be that aggressive, and it's not going to be a linear thing. Also, I think what their prediction fails to realize is that the base of people online keeps growing. It's not like we have less people online. Now people are getting online earlier in their years and when they're younger, and people are going to online now that they're older. So the base is I think what is going to happen is that it's just also switching. I think people are starting to change habits and using social media networks also as search engines or discovery engines. So I think it's just kind of a spread out, and I think it's good that we're gonna have more options, and search is gonna be a little bit more democratized. So I think it's interesting to see how things are gonna evolve. So let me take a couple questions from the audience. Give them some love. We haven't forgotten about you. Okay, so um, do you think that we'll see more personalized search experiences?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the AI tools, remember, we're still at the beginning of the quality and the abilities of a lot of these tools. I think they will get significantly better, and the ability to provide actual valuable personalized search experiences will progress. What will be interesting that kind of makes it hard to predict is what role data privacy will play in all that. Like, will we see a backlash in people saying, because you have to kind of give up an element of data privacy in order to participate in a personalized search. So if a government says, you have the choice, I think it could be divided in the sense of like, there will be that option for an ad heavy, your data, giving it up there, personalized search, but it's very helpful and useful for you, and a version that is more bricked, more general, but it doesn't know you because it can't track anything.
Yeah, I think there's even a speculation that you might get personalized content, meaning you get personalized results, but also the content that you access is personalized to you. You know what I mean? Like there'll be maybe the ability for sites to create content on demand that is personalized to you specifically, that speaks to you. Maybe the same from a piece of content, it gets catered to you specifically based on the data that's being provided. But I think directionally, yes, search results will get more personalized, 100%. Okay, let's move to another question from Jeff. Given that organic search might drop off and see Meta's recent integration of AI into Messenger, Instagram, is the opportunity for SEO experts to integrate their best practices in all channels for brands slash small companies? Or are we watching the rise of new experts who can influence SEE, social, AIs, etc.?
It's a great question, Jeff. I think ultimately it's all about holistic marketing, and it's all about the two-way dialogue conversation, in the sense that just going back to understanding who your audience is, where they spend their time, and you being there in a way that's not necessarily talking at them, but having the conversation. Like, that's another reason I don't think AIs are going to completely remove the role of people. So whether that's social media, whether that's, SEO, informational search channels, whether that's these LLMs, whether that's whatever, Meta, are we going to go into virtual reality? I know Apple Vision Pro has their thing out there. And, it's funny to joke about that. Google Glass wasn't successful, but I think we're always going to see new channels. We're always going to see new ways to compete for our audience's competition. I think everything will continue to get harder because we'll have to be in more channels because we're all going to diversify where we spend our time. Like dark social and discords and Reddit and this, that, and the other thing. So I think having a holistic strategy with your team for all of your content that can be distributed across the appropriate channels for the appropriate people where they are is going to be the future of content and marketing. Is it going to get easier? Hopefully the tools will allow it for us, because a lot of it's beyond our ability to think of, like juggling all of that.
Yeah. And on that note, something that we have been seeing in the market from our clients and from just analyzing the market is everybody is starting to diversify. And we are strongly suggesting our clients to diversify because, again, in a world where AIs are going to have the basic answers, people are going to want more editorial type of thought leadership stuff. And and in the social networks, especially the ones like LinkedIn, where you're looking for very specific information and really getting an expert point of view, I've seen LinkedIn growing very fast. And is 2 years ago, one of every 20 clients would ask for help with LinkedIn. Today, one of every two clients ask for LinkedIn help, right? And we're recommending the clients, hey, pick some people in your company that you want to raise their profile and that you think they can become thought leaders and start creating or have a content strategy for them. Not people don't follow pages, people follow people, right? So another takeaway is like, yeah, don't create my ABC company and put a bunch of content there. It's good to have it alive and have interactions and maybe create a community around it, but I think a better strategy is to have your thought leaders, like people like Garrett in iPullRank. People will follow Garrett, and maybe that will convert into credibility for their business and will convert rather than I just following the company's page. That's just our experience and what we have observed. But I think if anything, my recommendation to clients is start diversifying into borrowed audiences and own audiences, right? Borrowed audiences is Google search, 100% borrowed. I think others like the social networks are a little bit hybrid because you still are building people that follow you there, right? So they're not appearing, you're not helping to appear in a search, or people follow you. So they're a hybrid, but they're still not yours because the algorithm can change and then you lose it. And then you're fully owned audience, which is a newsletter or something like that. So I think smart marketers need to start diversifying in this world, because the other thing is that we're terrible at predicting. Humans are terrible at predicting. That's why, Garner, lots of respect for you, but I know you're going to be wrong. That's because it's just naturally, we'll get it wrong predicting, right? So things will have more nuance than that. So because we don't know exactly where things are going to end up, let's start diversifying, learning about these new technologies, and start researching and putting our eggs in different baskets, because I think search and discoverability are getting more democratized and people will have more options. What do you think of that, of my little monologue there?
No, I'm glad. I always love hearing your perspective, Carlos, because you and I are very aligned on a lot of this stuff, and I agree. I do think it's a tough fine line to balance, because we want to own the audience, so we have a little more control, so we're not screwed if, like, Twitter turns to X and all of our people are like, well, I'm not going on X anymore, and they all disappear, and you got to hope that you've connected with them to the extent that they want to try and find you. At the same time, it's still, there's no guarantee. Like, you still have to continue to adapt, and you still have to continue to create. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting for influencers, brands, whatever, to continually produce great content at a high level. I think it's a major challenge, and you see, you have a certain kind of runway before you run out of steam. I think that's just it's a very small percentage of people who can keep it going. I would say for anyone, though, regardless of how you feel about AI and the future of it, the two most important skills I would focus on for you and your business going forward is your adaptability and learning, basically your ability to learn new things, especially in the context of all this AI. Get in there, don't be afraid, do it. And then two is communication, whether it's communicating with your audience, continuing to build on that, or communicating with these tools. We hear the jokes about prompt engineering and all that, but like the thing with Google, the thing with these chatbots is you can only get the output you're looking for if you can communicate it effectively. And a lot of us are not very good at that, at really giving all the context for what we're looking for. So I would recommend people to continue to build out that skill set to be able to communicate exactly what you want, no minced words, so that you're more effective at getting the output that you want for content creation, ideation, all that sort of thing. So I'm with you on that. I think it's a hard job. LinkedIn is a really great place for B2B, but that's the type of business, right? Like it's not great for a direct to consumer, razor brand doesn't need to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah. You're not going to be selling perfumes in LinkedIn, perhaps, but that's you have Meta and TikTok for. My last speculation, or the last thing that I would like to touch with you, I've seen more and more that ads are changing to just straight up buy my stuff to sponsor content. So, and same discovery. So a lot of it's sponsored content. So my speculation, again, I would love to hear your thought, is that maybe the future of content is going to be, okay, you want to be surfacing in the answers, you have to sponsor your content, right? Instead of now ads, because again, if SGE or Google's trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to monetize the search results if I don't have like little ads? Because I'm going to have the information. Maybe we'll have to pay to get our content service. I don't know. That's just a big speculation on my end. I just want to, this is just one data point.
I agree. I mean, it's already happening, right? Like, because you think about how many different media publications are already pay to play. You think about the Forbes of the world or the entrepreneurs, like if you want to show up in there, I mean, I'd like to think they're organically reaching out to, random people for quotes or whatever, but unless you are a well-established person or leader or authority or brand, you are paying already to get in, whether or if you're the brand, you're sponsoring an influencer's content or something else. I think that game is already here. The cynic in me is with you that it's only going to get worse in every capacity, whether it's Google facilitating it, whether it's the social media platforms, facilitating it, or individual brands. I mean, I think we've seen in the last few years the sponsorship of email newsletters become a very lucrative way to get in front of your audience. Because that kind of balances that authenticity, personal branding with, selling your stuff. I think advertising will continue to evolve, but I don't know. Facebook, TikTok, they're so good at getting the right products in front of me. It's like ads still are just like straight up ads are still really effective when done right.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been such fantastic conversation, Garrett. I wish we had a beer and then we can just keep talking about this for a few more hours. To the audience, thank you very much. You all been fantastic. Just everybody stayed and listened very attentively, and we got really great questions. So, well, where can they find you, Garrett? I know you're in LinkedIn, you're in Twitter. Where else can they find you?
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. You can just email me, Garrett at iPullRank.com. iPullRank.com is our agency, do content and SEO. And then, yeah, I am begrudgingly on LinkedIn, despite enjoying Twitter more, if I'm being completely honest. But Garrett Sussman at both. Just add all the S's and R's and T's in my name because I double
Yeah.
up everything.
Do follow Garrett if you want to stay up to date with all things SEO, but especially SGE and AI, because I think he's doing a fantastic job there. He is speaker at Moss. Congratulations to being selected. So if you are interested, come and see him in Moss. I'll probably go see you in Seattle. I think it's August. Yeah. So again, I'm not sponsored by Moss by any means. I just think it's a great conference, and I would love to see my man Garrett there in person. So thank you all for attending today. And Garrett, thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thanks, Carlos. Y'all check out those other webinars. Carlos, every single one's so good, man. So good.
Thank you. Really
Thank you
appreciate it
all.
because of people like you. Thank you. Bye. All.